me. Hey, listen, today I'm going to share with you why every freight broker needs to do a SWOT analysis. We're going to go through that in detail. Thank you for joining me. Again, if you're catching this on replay, hit me up in the comments with hashtag replay. And for the rest of you just getting live, thank you so much for being here. Hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from, and I'll try to do a shout out before we get started in the training. So the agenda today is pretty simple. We are going to do some quick shout outs. We're going to do the training. We may or may not do a giveaway, maybe a Freightpreneur t-shirt, not sure, depending on time. And then at the end, we will actually do live Q&A. For those of you that stick around to the end, you can ask me questions in the chat box. I'll do my absolute best to try to answer them. So thank you everybody for being here. I've got a lot of notes today. This is an important one that I've never, ever covered before. And I don't know why I haven't covered it, but I definitely have not covered it in any of my trainings. So you guys make sure you lean in, take some notes. But the good news is at the end, I'm actually going to give you a link where you can download the resources that you need in order to do your own SWOT analysis. Okay. But we're going to go over that in a lot more detail now. Let me give you some shout outs really quick. If you hear I'm a little nasal congested, I apologize. I woke up that way, not quite sure what's going on. Hopefully we're not going to get sick, but feeling a little bit under the weather, but I definitely wanted to make it here for you guys today. So here we go. We got Jordan from Springfield, Ohio. Welcome. Kevin from Raleigh, North Carolina. Gray Positive Solutions from Dallas, Texas. Dwayne Johnson. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Again, hit me up in the comments with the city and state. I'll try to give you a quick shout out. I know we normally do these trainings every Monday at noon. Okay. I could not make it yesterday. Just wasn't anything I could do. There was no way I was going to be able to cover this topic and get it done the way I wanted to get done. So I pushed it to today. I hope you guys can catch this live. If not, catch it on replay. And I do appreciate it. I know it's the middle of the day, so it's a little bit challenging for some of you. Welcome, Corey from Billings, Montana. Welcome, Maxime from Canada. Mariella from Louisiana. Welcome, Iban Wilson from Durham, North Carolina. So we're going to let a few more people get live, and then we're going to jump into the training. And again, like I said, I got a bunch of notes today, and I'm going to try to get through them pretty quickly. And then again, stick around to the end because number one, I'm going to do a live Q&A. And number two, I'm actually going to give you a downloadable resource that can give you full access to help you walk through your own SWOT analysis, which is what I'm going to cover today. Okay. All right. So let me just quickly review my notes, make sure I got everything in order here while we get a few more people live. Welcome, Samara from New York City. Welcome, Lewis from Lehigh Acres, Florida. Welcome, Sharon from Long Island. Man, people from all over the place. Thank you so much. All right, cool. So let me grab a quick drink and we'll get this show on the road. All right. Well, we got quite a few people live. That's awesome. And I'm sure more will join and catch us on replay. So let me just review super quick here. All right, cool. So today I want to share with you why every freight broker should do a SWOT analysis. Now, you're probably looking at me like I got a big green eyeball sticking out of the middle of my head, and you're saying, what in the heck is a SWOT analysis? So a SWOT analysis is a brainstorming process that is designed to help entrepreneurs and business leaders, management within an organization, to help create a solid business strategy to maximize the company's growth. Now, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. So that's what this analysis is all about. What you're trying to do is you're trying to sit down and take a top-down view of your business so that you can fully understand the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And then you can create a strategic plan on how to mitigate your risk and leverage your strengths and opportunities. Okay, so that's really what this comes down to. Now, every business should do this. This is a common business practice. It's kind of fallen out of favor over the years for whatever reason, but you definitely shouldn't overlook this, particularly as a freight broker startup. Now, if you've been in business for several years, this is definitely, and you haven't done a SWOT analysis, this is probably something that you should do at least once a year. Okay. It's probably, some people would say once a quarter, but I'm definitely urging you to do this at least once a year if you're already operational and up and running. If you're a true startup and you're just getting started or you're just thinking about this, you have the huge advantage of starting early this brainstorming process and this strategy process, understanding your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, so let's dive into this really quick. The objective of the SWOT analysis, okay, again, is to reduce risk, improve business performance, and create a competitive advantage. All right. So those are some of the big reasons why you want to do it. The key here is creating a SWOT analysis. This is where a lot of people struggle. They'll sit down with a piece of paper and they'll start brainstorming. And what they're not quite sure of is how to identify their strengths, how to identify their weaknesses, how do I identify the opportunities and threats, right? So that's part of what I'm going to walk you through today. So we're just going to take, for example, I'm actually going to share my screen really quick. Give me a minute. And bing, bang, boom. All right. So you should be, let me make sure. Oh, you're not. Okay. So right now you should be seeing the first page of the template, which is how to use the freightbrokerbootcamp.com SWOT analysis template. Okay. So if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a link where you can actually download this Google Sheets template, right? This Google Doc template. And you can see here, what you've got is basically a brainstorming document where you'll put your company name in. You can list your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Now, when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, those are typically relevant, and those are kind of internal. Those are looked at as internal. Opportunities and weaknesses are looked at external, right? So when you want to break it down, think about it that way. And a couple of things that you can do here is really, when you're sitting down to brainstorm, take each one of these separately, think about the strengths. And for example, what you want to start doing is you want to start asking yourself questions, right? Ask yourself questions and then answer those questions. For example, if you're within your business, depending upon what stage you're at, right? What's your experience level? If you're a startup and you're doing this, what is your experience level? What experiences do you have that help you and become a strength for you in starting and launching a freight brokerage? So one of my strengths was sales. I had a sales background. So that was one of the strengths that I had, right? I also had a strong background in technology, right? Because I owned a software company at one point. I had also had some entrepreneurial experience. So that was a strength. I'd already been through this a little bit. So those are examples of strengths. Like, what's your experience? What's your past experience like? Now, if you're already an operational broker, you're going to ask some different questions. Maybe you've already been doing this for 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years. You're going to ask a little bit different questions. You're going to ask questions like, what processes are we using that are successful, right? Other questions you might ask is, what assets do you have? What are the strongest assets that you have? How secure is your customer base, right? What gives you an edge over your competition, right? Do you have access to capital? And with all brokers, most brokers have access to capital because they have access to factoring. Do you have a strong network? For example, if you were a truck driver for 5 or 10 years, do you have a strong network of carriers and a strong network of shippers that you've worked with? So those are all examples of things that you can look at, and you would list them in your strengths category, right? So that's the strengths part, right? Start asking yourself questions. And, again, this is a brainstorming exercise. There are no bad answers. You can always go back and edit this later. But what you want to do is you want to start jotting these down on paper. And then once you finalize them, you're going to add them to your strengths, right? You're going to add them right there in your in the strengths section of your SWOT analysis. All right, so let's move on. For weaknesses, the same thing. Again, these are internal. So you're thinking about your weaknesses, your company's weaknesses, your services weaknesses, right? So you're going to start thinking about, what could hinder your growth process, right? What could hinder your growth curve? In what areas do your competitors have a big advantage over you? What skills are you lacking? For example, one of the skills that I see most lacking for startup freight brokers and freight agents is sales. It's the reason why I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, right? I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is a 5-week sales coaching program where I teach that entire process from cradle to grave. And most freight brokers and freight agents need that because they don't have that process in place. They don't have a proven process for getting customers, right? Another question is, do you have enough funding, right? Do you have enough funding as a startup to weather those early days? Do you have enough of a runway? Do you have at least a few months of funding in order to start getting your first few customers to start generating cash flow, right? Those are the types of questions you're going to start thinking about. Again, this is when you're focusing in on the weakness. So now we've covered the strengths and weaknesses, which is those internal attributes, right? Now we're going to talk about external, right? So we're going to start talking about opportunities and threats. Let's talk about opportunities for a minute. So in opportunities, a question you might ask is, how can technology help to enhance or improve my service, right? How can I leverage different technology, whether that be new TMSs or load boards or phone systems or other technology? How can I leverage that technology to enhance my services? Track and trace technology. Other questions, in what way can I turn, so this is a big question. In what way can you turn your strengths and weaknesses into opportunities? Now think about that for a second. In what way can you turn your strengths and your weaknesses that you've already identified into opportunities? We talked about before, one of your strengths might be you have a strong network of shippers that you've worked with before because you were a truck driver. How could you convert that into an opportunity, right? Because that's what we're talking about now, right? You've got those old bill of ladings, you've got those old business cards, you've got those records that you could access and leverage. You may even have some of those people in your personal cell phone on speed dial because you've done so much business with them. So that's an example of how you might answer that question. All right. A couple of other, what are current trends that you can leverage? What trends are going on right now that you could leverage as an opportunity? You got to think about that specifically as it relates to the economic climate, but more specifically as it relates to your specific niche, right? So for example, if you're in the produce niche, is it produce season right now? Are you in a position where you can take advantage of different produce seasons that rotate throughout the year? Because again, they don't always ship oranges out of Florida, right? I mean, that's the classic example. They don't, they produce oranges, but there's one window of time when the majority of those oranges are harvested and transported. So where do you go from there? What state do you go to? What different produce do you do? So that's where I'm talking about what changes are going on that you can take advantage of. Another one is, are there upcoming events that the company can participate in, whether that be trade shows, whether that be, networking type events. Those are other things that you want to ask. So those are where opportunities lie. And then the last one we're going to talk about is threats. Okay. This is one that everybody gets worried about. This one is where the sky is falling. But the fact is, you have to understand what are the threats that are out there. There are immediate short-term threats, and then there are long-term threats. So So ultimately, what do you want to look at is this, if you have carriers already, right? Are they capable of supplying the services that you need at the price that you need, right? That's a threat. So you have carriers maybe you've done business with. Are they healthy financially? Are they going to have to, are they able to survive and thrive at the rates and where the economy is today? If not, you need to find other carriers, right? Because that's a potential threat that could disrupt your business. What future technologies could affect your business in a negative way, right? Let's think about future technologies that affect you in a negative, because this is a threat, remember that question can be on both sides, an opportunity and a threat. So you need to think about it that way. Is your business prepared for unforeseen situations like a global pandemic or financial instability? Those sorts of things. We just went through a global pandemic a few years ago. Could you operate in that situation? I mean, you need to think about those things. What would you need to do? The cool thing about being a freight broker is if you're a solo broker, then you're operating from home. So you're already remote. If you're operating as an agent model, most of that is remote, right? So there's a lot of advantages there that, what could be potential threats for some companies, particularly like for example, like a CH Robinson or a TQL or a Coyote. Those are really, a global pandemic is something that could really crush them. But when you're operating from home, if you've got to work remote, it makes it a lot easier. So those are the types of things I want you to think about. And then last but not least, what trends can become a significant threat to you? You need to think about these things. So now I think you have a sense here now as to the basics of how this would work, right? How this SWOT analysis would work. So let me just swing back over here really quick and remove this, and we'll pop back on here. So the key here is this. Remember, the goal of the SWOT analysis is to brainstorm and to come up with ideas as an entrepreneur that to allow you to create a solid business strategy. So after you've done this SWOT analysis, the important part is that you take that data, you take your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and then you put that into an actionable plan. Now, that's sometimes a little bit harder than the actual SWOT analysis, but the reality is putting this SWOT analysis probably won't take you more than an hour to put all those things down on paper. Now, you're probably going to have to spend some time thinking about the strategy. But what I want you to understand is imagine having that SWOT analysis and doing it once every 3 to 6 to 12 months and referring back on that. It obviously gets a lot easier over time, but a lot of those things will stay the same and there'll be some minor tweaks. Maybe 10 or 20% of the SWOT analysis will change, and it makes it a lot easier for you to create an actionable strategic plan, right? And to put a strategy in place that will help you to navigate not only your skills or lack of skills, your opportunities or lack of opportunities, but also your threats and your weaknesses. Okay. So that's the reason why I think every freight broker and every freight agent should do a SWOT analysis, whether you're a startup or an established broker. Listen, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, listen really quick. I'm going to give you access here really quick. Let me pull this up, and I'm going to give you the ability here to download. Okay, that's right. Boom, here you go. If you guys want to download a free download of that SWOT analysis template, right, that you can use absolutely free, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/SWOT. I made it easy as possible, right? You go there, it's going to bring you to a link. You'll be able to download that. You'll be able to then copy that Google Doc into your Google folder, into your Google account, and then you can do anything you want with it. You can edit it, you can adjust it, you can tweak it, you can twist it, whatever you want to do. But listen, for that, just make sure you check that out. Make sure you download that. That's probably only going to be available for a limited time. So make sure you download it now. If you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent and you're just getting started, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We've trained over 10,000 students. We've had that program since 2009. I've personally done over $200 million as a freight broker, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. All right, listen, for those of you that are sticking around for the giveaway live Q&A, let me check the clock really quick. Let me check the clock here really quick. Oof. Okay. Probably not going to do a giveaway today, but I would urge you guys, download that SWOT analysis. Okay. Download that. Hold your questions. Okay. Do not ask questions yet, but I will get to them. Give me 1 second. Let me just make sure that this is all operating properly. Question while I'm doing this. Ooh, that's not working. Hold on a minute. I apologize, guys. Why is that not working? That's supposed to be working. Hold on 1 minute, guys. I apologize. Why is that not working? Give me 1 minute. I'll make sure this thing is working properly. That's super strange because it's supposed to be working here. Huh. Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize. For some reason, that redirect is not working. Give me 1 minute and I will fix it for us. And then we'll jump into Q&A. So hold tight, okay? I want to make sure you guys get access to that. It was working earlier. I don't know why it's not working now. Let me just see if I can do it here. Give me 1 second. I apologize, guys. I know you guys are all going to hit me up for this target URL. Boom. Paste. Let's see. Add to redirect here. Let's see what happens. Boom. Okay. So it should work now. Let me know. Check now. If you guys could do me a favor. Check now and see if that works. Okay. Check now and let me know that the link right here, this link, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/SWOT. Let me know that it's working on your end because I just tested it again. I fixed it. I don't know what the problem was, but it's working on my end now. Let me know that you guys can get to the page where you can actually download it. Oh, thank you so much, William. I really appreciate the kind words. And I agree. So do my past students. The success stories just continue to come in. So thank you. All right. So let me know in the comments that somebody let me know in the comments so you guys can access that link. Still not working. You might have to refresh. It works now. Thank you. Okay. All right. So you guys, if it's not working, you might have to clear your cache or something, but refresh it. It should be working because it's working for me. I've tested it in multiple browsers now. And that's so strange. Yeah, clear your browser history. That might be part of the problem. All right, so most of the people are getting it. I apologize for any inconvenience. I have no idea why it's not working. Maybe that's something goofy going on with the internet, but let's move on. I don't want to digress here. I know you guys are limited for time. First of all, before we jump in, before I start taking questions, I have a question for you. Have any of you ever done two-part question here? If you've ever done a SWOT analysis in any of your businesses, including your freight brokerage or freight agency, let me know in the comments. Yes, I've done it. I've already done a SWOT analysis. And if not, let me know, hey, yes, I plan on doing a SWOT analysis or plan on doing my first analysis, right? Based on that training. Let me know in the comments what you guys come up with. Let me know where you guys are at. I want to make sure I'm asking this, not to waste time. I'm asking this because I want to make sure, once again, that this content is valuable to you. Because if it is, maybe we'll do a second part to this. Maybe there'll be other components of this. Maybe we'll do a deeper dive. Maybe we'll bring a student on who's done a SWOT analysis and we'll use them as kind of a template that you guys could go through. So, I mean, there's other things we can do, but let me know if you guys have ever done a SWOT analysis. And if you haven't, this is going to allow you to help you do a SWOT analysis. Do we need a SWOT analysis if we're just getting started? I would strongly recommend. Okay, so let's jump into Q&A because you guys are starting to ask questions. So let's just jump into Q&A. Hold on, let me see. All right. Okay, so here's a question from Payne. Does a beginner broker have an upper hand if I already have a truck and drivers for loads? It can be a benefit if you have a network of carriers and drivers already. It definitely can be. That would what we would consider to be a strength or an opportunity, right? You having a network of carriers would definitely be listed as a strength. Now, you have to come up with a strategy that allows you to leverage that strength, right? So here's the example, right? So let's say, for example, you're in Buffalo, because I'm in the Buffalo area, and you've got a bunch of carriers in the Buffalo area that like to run Buffalo to the Midwest or Buffalo to the West Coast. If you start prospecting for freight down in Florida or in Texas, those carriers probably aren't going to be a whole lot of value to you, right? Because the reality is they're not running the same lanes that you're going to be running. So when I think those are valuable assets, and you could build a business around that because you'd probably prospect locally or you'd prospect in the Midwest. But what I'm trying to say to you and what I'm trying to elaborate on is the fact that yes, those carriers can be an asset, and they can be a strength and an opportunity, but you have to have the right strategy to leverage those relationships. And that's what you really need to work on. And that's a big part of why you want to do a SWOT analysis, because it makes you sit down and write these things down. And then you have to think about, how can I turn those strengths and opportunities into revenue and growth? And how can I leverage my weaknesses and threats and convert those into growth, right? So that's an example of why, Payne. Good question. Thank you. Congratulations. Your brokerage is going live Monday. Awesome. Congratulations to you. Do I need a SWOT analysis? I'm just getting started. Listen, there have been thousands of freight brokers that started a successful freight brokerage without a SWOT analysis. So I'm not here to tell you that it is an absolute positive prerequisite, because there have been plenty of people that have started without one. I did a SWOT analysis when I first got started because I had already done SWOT analysis on previous businesses before. But I strongly suggest it for all the reasons we've already talked about, right? It's a living document that will only take you about an hour to do or less, where you are brainstorming and putting yourself down on paper that will allow you to have a top-down view of your business, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And then you can come up with strategies to help you leverage all of that data, right? Just had a perfect example. Someone said, hey, if I've got a strong network of carriers and drivers already, can that be valuable? Absolutely. That's a strength. That's an asset you have, right? But now you need to convert that into a strategy that allows you to leverage that and turn that into revenue and sales and customers, right? So I hope that helps. If you're looking, hold on. If you're looking for agents, if you're looking to hire agents or you're looking to get hired as an agent, okay, you want to go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/jobs. Okay. That is our freight broker, freight agent only job board. You can post a job for free. You can apply for a job for free. It's absolutely free. Okay. So you guys can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/jobs. Okay. Hope that helps. All right. All right, here's a question. I've made a very strong driver contact and now will have no issue with my drivers. The only 3 things I am needing. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so here's a question. Do you do freight broker or just study? Maxime. Well, Maxime, I'm not quite sure the question, but I think I know. I owned a freight brokerage and did over $200 million as a freight brokerage. I then sold that freight brokerage in 2016. But along the way, I also launched Freight Broker Bootcamp in 2009, which is my online freight broker and freight agent training program. It's well known to be the most cost-effective and comprehensive online training program available today. Okay. So I put that program in place since 2009. Over 10,000 students have went through that program. We've had tons of success stories. You can read about those on my YouTube channel or on my blog. And that program is something that, since selling my freight brokers, I now focus almost exclusively on Freight Broker Bootcamp as a program that allows new brokers and existing brokers to start and grow a successful freight brokerage or freight agency. Okay. So I hope that clarifies your question. Question. When I find a load for a driver, what paperwork do I need to give out to the shippers? Okay, so the process goes like this. All right. If you're going to do business with a shipper, there's a couple things that you're definitely going to need. One, you're going to need to have them fill out a credit application so you can run credit on them, right? Or your factoring company can run credit on them. You're going to want to get a credit application, one-page basic credit application. They may have a shipper broker contract that you need to sign, or you may choose to use your own shipper broker contract to have them sign, right? That's kind of optional, but a lot of that does happen quite often these days, okay? The other thing you're probably going to have to provide the shipper is proof of your authority, some basic bona fides, right? Some basic credentials. Beyond that, they are going to then provide you the load data specific to that load. Once you've got them approved, you're going to provide the load data. You're going to enter that into your TMS, or you're going to post it or whatever, depending upon if you've already got a carrier for it. You're going to send the carrier. You're obviously going to agree to a rate from that shipper, on the load, wherever that lane is, Buffalo to Atlanta. You're going to agree to a rate on that. You're going to get that rate. And then from there, you're going to send a rate confirmation to the carrier for whatever rate you've negotiated. Say, for example, the carrier is going to pay you $2,000 and you're going to pay, or the shipper is going to pay you $2,000 and you're going to pay the carrier $1,800, and there's $200 profit in that load, right? That's a perfect example. So you're going to want to get a credit app. You're going to want to provide them some bona fides, some basic information about you. You're going to have to do some sort of a rate for them on whatever lane it is. And they may have some other special requirements, but in most cases, those are the basics that you're going to need. Then you're going to need to get the load data from them, so you obviously can make sure that it picks up and delivers on time. So I hope that helps. I also have a video on my YouTube channel that walks through the entire process from cradle to grave of, from reaching out to a shipper, to doing a rate, to doing a rate quote, to posting the load, to sourcing the carriers, to doing all the check calls. You guys can check that out. I think on my YouTube channel, it is on my YouTube channel under, let's see. Let me just see really quick. Yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/freight brokers, and then you search in my channel, I think it's under how freight brokers make money. Okay. And I think that walks through the entire process. So if you really want to get granular, I think it's a 17-step process that I walk through. I think that's what it is. I did that video a few years ago. It's been very, very popular. So I think it's helped a lot of people. So hopefully it'll help you. I'm scrolling, looking for questions here. Hold on a minute. Okay, question. Hi, Dennis. My question is, how does a broker get reimbursed for lumpers they either reimburse or pay for carrier? Do brokers guesstimate that into the initial rate or bill the shipper? Okay, so good question. Number one, when you take a load from a shipper, you should ask them, are there lumpers on the pick or delivery? You should be asking that question because you want to know up front if there are lumpers. Very, very, very rarely is a shipper going to be picking up or delivering from somebody that they don't know they have lumpers. Super rare. Okay. And if they do have lumpers, you need to negotiate that up front and let the shipper is going to say, we'll pay your lumpers. In most cases, they're going to pay the lumpers with a receipt. So all you got to do is show a receipt with your bill. They'll reimburse you for the lumper fee. Okay. So that's how it should go. Now, in the event that your driver gets to a location and they need a lumper that requires a lumper to offload the truck, before you offload the truck, you should reach out to your shipper and say, hey, listen, I wasn't aware there was a lumper on this end. I need you to send me an email letting me know you'll reimburse me. The estimated cost is whatever, right? Get some confirmation from them that they'll reimburse you. Then you use that receipt as a part of your bill and you'll get reimbursed. Okay. That's typically how it's going to work. Very rarely are shippers going to not know that it requires a lumper, because very rarely are they shipping a product for the first time to a location or picking up a product for the first time from a location. Okay. So that should help. Okay, let's see. Question. All right. I know drivers want to get paid fast, so I went and now I have two factoring companies. Okay, well, if you have two factoring companies, that's interesting. I don't think you're going to need two factoring companies, but if you have two, great. Whatever works for you. You only really need one. Okay. Maxime asks, do you need to have insurance? Freight brokers legally are not responsible or need to have insurance. You do not have to have general liability insurance. You do not have to have cargo insurance. You do not have to have contingent cargo insurance. You don't have to have any insurance by law requirement. Okay. Now, your state may have a law or requirement associated with general liability. That's not uncommon for a lot of businesses where you would have general liability. That's very inexpensive for general liability insurance. Now, you don't need auto, you don't need cargo, you don't need contingent cargo. The reason why brokers don't need cargo insurance is because when the load ships, right, when the bill of lading, when a carrier takes that freight onto their truck, they are now assuming liability for it because they have possession of that freight. That's what the bill of lading says. That's the contract between the shipper and the carrier and the receiver, right? So they are required to have cargo insurance that is in excess of the value of the load, right? So minimum cargo insurance for, the FMCSA, I think is 5,000, but most carriers have 100,000 or more in cargo insurance. They're also required to have what's called BIPD, which is bodily injury, personal damage, which is a liability insurance. So you as a broker are responsible for making sure that the carrier has the proper insurance, but you are not responsible for having that insurance yourself. Now, the caveat to that is that some shippers, not all, and definitely not the majority, some shippers require that you have what's called contingent cargo insurance. Now, that contingent cargo is exactly that. It is a supplement. It's designed to help supplement the carrier's cargo insurance in the event that the carrier's cargo insurance doesn't pay and that the contingent cargo is designed to cover the reason why they didn't pay. So yeah, contingent cargo is not a requirement. Cargo is not a requirement. BIPD is not a requirement. General liability is not a requirement, but you may want to get some of those at some time during your business. When I first started, I had general liability insurance, but I didn't have contingent cargo. Months later, I got contingent cargo because I had a specific shipper that I wanted to do business with that we had developed a good rapport, developed a good relationship. I did a cost benefit analysis of what it was going to cost me versus what I was going to generate. And I decided to go out and get the contingent cargo. But that was months later after starting. I did not have it at startup. And so I hope that helps draw a little bit of a picture. Okay, as a beginner, which one do you recommend most to rely on? Full truckload, LTL, or both? Okay, so this is a very subjective question, right? You're asking me which one I prefer. I think that for startup brokers, full truckload makes more sense. Okay, I think full truckload makes more sense for startup brokers. Here's the reason why. Because LTL, two reasons. Number one, if you move a full truckload shipment, you're probably going to make somewhere between $150 and $250 on that load on average, okay, in profit. But if you move a small LTL shipment, you might make $25 or $50 or $75 on that shipment if it's a small LTL. It's going to take you the same amount of time to move that freight, the same amount of effort, but you're making 5 times as much, okay, or more. So the reality is, I think that me personally, I believe full truckload makes more sense as a startup broker. Now, some people have a lot of LTL experience. Now, if you've got a ton of LTL experience as a shipper or as a carrier or as a working inside of a brokerage, then maybe it's LTL for you. But as a general rule, I think full truckload makes more sense. Number one, it's a little bit easier. It's not as complex. It's not as difficult to rate. There are a lot more carriers to service it. So for those reasons, I think full truckload. But I'm not saying to not do LTL. The companies that do really, really well with LTL have very strong, competitive discounts and prices with major LTL providers. They also have TMS systems and software that specialize in LTL that allow them to rate and tender all of those directly through the software. Perfect example of that is someone like a Global Trans, right? When Global Trans kind of burst onto the scenes 20 years ago, they focused exclusively on LTL, right? That was their niche. And then they finally expanded later into LTL or into full truckload and other. But that's because they had that background, because they had that technology, because they had those rates that they could leverage. So I think full truckload for all those reasons. What's the best way to get connected with a freight broker or freight agent to work as an agent for them? I've already shared with you, if you want to become an agent, right? What you want to do, the first thing you want to do is go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/jobs. Okay. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/jobs. It's a free job board. If you're looking to hire people, you can post a job ad there for free. If you're looking to get hired, you'll see a bunch of people that are looking for agents and brokers. You can apply. Some of them require experience. Some of them do not, right? Statistically speaking, it's about a 50-50. 50% of the people that have placed job ads there don't require experience or a book of business, and 50% do. So there's plenty of opportunity there because we've had hundreds and hundreds of different job posts over the last year that, of people that are looking for agents and brokers. So that would be one of the things you want to do. The other thing you might want to do is go to my blog, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog, right, which is right here. And then in the search bar, search Get Hired. There's an entire blog post, an entire training, an entire video that I talk about with, I think it's a 4-part process, a 4-part step-by-step process on how to get hired as a freight agent with no experience. If you go to the blog, you do the search for Get Hired, you'll pull it up, you'll see it, you'll be able to walk through the entire training step-by-step, including the video, and you can download a cheat sheet right from there. So I think that would be the best way and the way that you would probably be able to, it would sink in the best for you. So I hope that helps. What do you recommend to increase your broker credit as a startup? Okay, so as a broker, your credit, there's really two sides to your credit. You have your non-transportation related credit, like your Dun & Bradstreet, bank loans, credit cards, things of that nature, okay? Your non-transportation related credit, that's Dun & Bradstreet. You can work on that, and that's important because long-term you're gonna wanna build good credit because you're gonna wanna establish credit with banks. But the more important credit that you're gonna establish is your transportation related credit, right? So that's credit that you're gonna have with carriers and factoring companies, right? So the most important thing you can do to build your credit as a freight broker is to, 1, pay your carriers quickly, and 2, make sure that those carriers are reporting you to the credit reporting agencies like Ansonia, right? Like all the different, like TransCredit, right? So those are the things that you want to do to make sure, because if you, as a startup broker, the load boards are going to show that you don't have any credit. But if you pay 5 carriers up front, or a few carriers up front, and then all of a sudden you get them to report to TransCredit or to Ansonia, that's going to build your credit very, very quickly. Matter of fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, right? And I hate doing this all the time, but I've answered all these questions a million times before. And I know that this would be helpful for you. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/freight brokers, and in my videos, you search for Build Credit Fast. Okay. We did an entire training. As a matter of fact, we had Eloy Longoria, one of my past students, come on and teach how he was able to make $7,000 in profit his first week as a broker without having any credit. And then how he was able to build his credit from 0 up to like A-B credit very, very quickly. So he walks through that entire process. So I think you'd really enjoy that. You'd find that extremely valuable. Okay. So I hope that helps. All right, I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. Okay, would a business line of credit be a good alternative to factoring companies to avoid factoring fees, say 100K to start? Absolutely, 100% without question. If you have the ability to get your own credit line with a bank or establish your own credit line, okay, having your own credit line makes more sense than factoring. Here's why as a startup, because the fees for credit for factoring are not cheap. They typically range between 1.5% and 5%, with an average fee probably being in the 2.5% to 3% range. So yes, that means on every 100,000 that you do, if it's a 3% fee, that's $3,000 out of your pocket to pay for factoring. Now, it's worth it all day long, because without that cash, you won't be in business. But if you have your own bank financing, your own credit, it's not going to cost you anywhere near that, because even if you had a bank loan at this point, your bank loan might only cost you 5 or 6, or even if it was 7% per annum, right? So if you look at 7% per year, right? 7 divided by 12, that's only 0.85% per month. So it's a fraction of what you would pay a factoring company, which is, like we said, 2-3% for just factoring an invoice for approximately a month, right? So it's 5 to 6 times the cost of factoring than it is to have your own financing. So good question. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. They're coming in fast and furious. So I'm not going to get to everybody's question. I'm doing my best. Hold tight. And the questions obviously have to make sense. Okay, so here's a question. Hi, Dennis. What advice would you recommend new freight brokers to stay away from? Okay, so a couple pieces of advice. New brokers, if you do not have experience in produce, if you don't have experience in produce, right, then I would probably tell you to avoid the produce industry until you get your legs under you a little bit. The produce industry is full of nuances. It's much higher claim ratio than most other freight, and the seasonality can make it challenging to create any sort of consistency. So if you're a brand new broker or agent, I would probably avoid the produce industry unless you have experience. That's one. I would also probably avoid co-brokering, right? I wouldn't be co-brokering, taking freight from other brokers or giving freight to other brokers. That, there's a difference between co-brokering and double brokering. Double brokering is unauthorized rebrokering of loads. Co-brokering is authorized rebrokering of loads, right? I don't want to get into that, but I would probably avoid double brokering or co-brokering. The other thing I would probably avoid, I would definitely avoid spending too much money on startup. I wouldn't go out and spend $5,000 or $2,000 on a brand new website when you could probably get one done for a few hundred up to 500. I wouldn't spend too much money on a brand new computer when you don't need it, right? On startup. So I would spend as little money as possible. I would avoid overspending. Another thing I would avoid is busy work, right? A lot of people avoid the most important work that generates sales, which is sales, right? They'll do everything in their power to avoid picking up the phone, right? When in reality, as a freight broker startup, 90% of your time should be spent prospecting, right? Not 10% of your time. See, here's the thing. You can fill that other 90% with all kinds of bullshit that you don't need to do. But the reality is, once you've got your authority, once you got your home office set up, once you've got the basics covered, at that point, you've got to start prospecting and selling like your life depends on it, because cash flow is oxygen to you. And without oxygen, you die. And without cash flow, you too will die, right? So you don't need to have your first shipper your first month, but you've got to have shippers come in and cash flow come in before you run out of cash and oxygen. So that's the reality. So those are a few things that I would avoid. Hope that helps. All right, let's see. Here's a question. I'm not quite sure. Mike asks, would you recommend using FaceTime at the time of pickup as a security measure when working with a new carrier for the first time? Let me think about that real quick. So you've already contracted with the carrier, you've already gotten them a rate confirmation, and you've already dispatched them into the pickup location. And now they're at the pickup, and you're saying to the carrier, call me on FaceTime so that I can verify that you're actually at the carrier. Sorry about that. What is the value of that? What's the benefit of that? Let me just think about it. So one, I guess if you can validate that they are actually at the carrier, which I'm not sure if you'd be able to do that or not, because again, FaceTime, they could show any doc, right? You know, they could show the background of any doc or the background of any truck or the gate, whatever. So I'm not sure. Maybe you've got a strategy for doing it. And I understand the question. You're trying to make sure that the first time you do business with a carrier, what we used to do sometimes with a brand new carrier is we would get a copy of that driver's license. They had to send us over a copy of their driver's license, right? So we did that with new carriers sometimes if we suspected there might be some sort of an issue. Very few drivers are going to send you their driver's license if they're not legit, right? Because they know right now that they just gave up their identification, and if you call the cops, you know, they've got their home address, right? So very few people are going to do that. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about the answer to that question. Maybe you're onto something. If you can expand on that, and you know, maybe in a future live, or you can send me an email on how you would do that and what the benefit is, maybe that's something to consider. Okay, I bought the Freight Broker Bootcamp. Should I get an LLC before I do anything? Before you go and file for your authority or your bond or any of that, you need to get an LLC or a corporation, right? So if you did Freight Broker Bootcamp, what you need to do is you need to log in there and you need to go to the video tutorials and go to Quick Start Training. And what I want you to do with that Quick Start Training is I want you to follow step by step by step by step and follow in that exact order, and you'll do great, because I put that entire Quick Start Training together for you. You log into Freight Broker Bootcamp, you go to the video tutorials, you go to Quick Start Training. It'll walk you through everything you need to do step by step to get your Freight Broker authority, right? That's phase one, right? Once you get your authority filed and that's all active, there's all kinds of stuff you can do in the meantime, right? Setting up your home office, deciding on your niche, getting your load boards, learning how to sell, building a list of prospects. And there's all kinds of things you can do in addition to that, but you got to get that Freight Broker authority. So just to ensure you don't make any mistakes, go to the Quick Start Training, but you will need an LLC before you file your application for your authority with the FMCSA. You will need an LLC before you get your surety bond. You will need all of that before you can actually become a broker. So that is typically the first step in that process. Question: could my decade as a truck driver, albeit I was only a company driver, be useful tool during a sales conversation? Yes, 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 100%. Now, why? In a sales conversation, the prospect is judging your level of experience and if they can trust you, right? It goes know, like, and trust. If you don't check all those boxes, they're not going to give you the business. Trust, being the fact that you've been in a truck for a decade, you've experienced virtually every issue that can happen while in transit, including traffic, including weather, including fuel, including lumpers, including quick pays, including everything that goes on in the process. And you've already experienced it firsthand. No one knows better what it takes to pick up and deliver a load on time in good condition with no problems than a good truck driver. So I believe truck drivers have a huge advantage, right? Converting into a brokerage. Why? Because you have not only that experience and that knowledge, but you also have the network of other carriers that you've met. You've also got the network of other shippers that you've picked up and delivered to, right? So I think that that can translate extremely well into a sales conversation, without a doubt. If you called me up as a driver of 10 years and now converted into a broker, and someone else called me up and didn't have that experience and all things were equal, I'd do business with you, hands down. So good question. Okay, so here's a question from Smara. The holiday season, selling becomes harder and most shippers don't want to be bothered talking to you. So second part of this, do you think it's better to wait? No, I don't think it's better to wait. I think that you need to continue to sell. Now, your strategy might be a little bit different. Your sales hook might be a little bit different. Your cadence might be a little bit different, right? So those things may change a little bit during the holiday season, right? Because again, it's like in July, right? Everybody goes on vacation in July, so a lot of people don't pick up their phone, right? In the holiday season, sometimes, people are a little bit laid back, right? So ultimately, but that's not true across the boards, right? There's plenty of shippers out there that are going gangbusters, and there's plenty of shippers out there that aren't going gangbusters that have plenty of time to talk to you. So don't paint with such a broad brush, because it hasn't been my experience. I think there are some shippers that are always going to be a bit too busy to take your call, and there are going to be some shippers that are willing to do that. So I would continue to prospect, okay? I would strongly suggest you continue to prospect. And what I would also strongly suggest is this. I would strongly suggest that you get, because you asked this question, and because you're on this live right now, I strongly suggest that you get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Now, the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is that 5-week Freight Broker sales training program where I teach my best freight broker sales strategies, tactics, tools in my entire system, which is proven, that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. I take that piece of my brain, I transplant it into your head to help you implement it within your business, and then you leverage it to go grow your business. That is the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, but it's currently sold out. It'll reopen probably in January, but if you're not on the wait list, you'll never have a chance to be, to get enrolled, because the only way you can get enrolled is to be on the wait list. So it's free to get on the wait list. The program is not free. The program is not cheap, but the fact is you'll get a 20, 30, 50 times ROI very easily if you leverage what I teach you, okay? So I've had over 700 students go through that program. I don't know the exact number. It's over 700. It's quickly approaching 1,000. And every one of those students at the end of the program, right, I give them an exit survey and I ask them to rate the program 1 to 10. The average rating is a 9.2 out of 10. I said it before. I would have been happy with a 7, ecstatic with an 8. It's a 9.2. There's no fluff in those numbers. Those are real numbers from real students that have completed that program. Many of them have went on to build 6- and 7-figure businesses. And so that strategy, I put that together. I launched that program a few years ago. It is the absolute best training I've ever put together, hands down. So if you are struggling to get shippers, right, or you're a startup and you don't have that sales background, you'd be absolutely foolish not to get on the wait list. You'll be first to get notified when I open it up. And then at that point, if you choose not to get enrolled, great. We can get you off the wait list. If you do get enrolled, at that point, we're going to be able to work together and you're going to be able to leverage those strategies to help you grow your business. Again, it's about folding time. It's about having that asset. We talked about the SWOT analysis, right? You're going to sit down and do the SWOT analysis and you're going to have to ask the question, Do I have a good sales experience? Do I have the ability to get customers? And it's either going to be a strength or a weakness. Where does it fall for you? If it's a weakness, then you absolutely need to get enrolled in some sort of freight broker sales training. And I recommend freight broker specific sales training because I'm speaking the exact language. I mean, you can go online and get all kinds of sales training, and a lot of that training is great. But I'm speaking directly from the seat of a freight broker who's actually sold to shippers directly, right? Everything from small mom and pop shops up to Fortune 500 companies. Okay, so I hope that helps. And I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Yeah, I don't. Okay. All right. So listen, guys, if you guys want that, download the SWOT analysis template, the free template, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/SWOT. Okay. You should be able to download it. No problem. It looks like it's working. It's working, right? So go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/SWOT. I'll also put let me do this. I'll put the direct link in here too. I don't know if it'll show up for all of you, but I'm going to put the direct link because that's a redirect. This is a direct link to where you can download it. Okay. So I'm not sure if you're all going to see it, but I think it posted on Facebook. I think it posted it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it posted on LinkedIn, but listen, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/SWOT. You'll get the free download. And for those of you that are curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're just getting started, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students. We offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. I can't make it any easier than that. There's no other freight broker training programs out there that offer guarantees, let alone a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So check it out at Freight Broker Bootcamp. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Remember, these lives are typically Mondays at noon. I know it's Tuesday. There's a little bit of an exception. Hopefully I'm feeling better by next week. Next Monday, I think I will be. So join me every Monday for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Thank you all for being here. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. And I will see you before the holidays. So we'll talk soon. Thanks all.